Bão di chuyển theo hướng hướng Tây, Tây Bắc và Tây Bắc, dọc theo bờ biển các tỉnh Thái Bình, Nam Định và Ninh Bình. Mỗi giờ đi được khoảng 20 đến đạt, có mưa vừa đến mưa to. Các tỉnh ven biển trong nhiều ngày tới để chủ động.
This is a rehearsal of responding to floods in Giao Hải Commune, Giao Thủy District, Nam Định Province. The scenario is about a very strong intensifying storm approaching coastal areas. Rough sea is dangerous for ships and boats of fishermen. Responsive team is calling for ships and boats to turn back home urgently. The incident of fishermen get injured during storm is a common situation and should also be practiced in rehearsal. On the mainland, people are evacuating and maintaining their homes. Response teams is supporting local people. Climate change has become increasingly undetermined that forecasting agency cannot warn in time. Thus, the preparation and response plan become more important in minimizing the damage before 2016 flood season.
Qua cái cuộc diễn tập thì nó có ý nghĩa hết sức là quan trọng để nâng cao cái công tác kỹ năng chỉ đạo cũng như là điều hành của Ban Chỉ huy phòng chống thiên tai và tìm kiếm cứu nạn của địa phương, cũng từ đó là nâng cao cái ý thức của cộng đồng sẵn sàng để ứng phó khi có thiên tai bão lụt là đổ bộ vào địa bàn.
Climate change is one of the biggest challenges for Vietnam's development. The impacts of climate change affects negatively towards local people's life, especially those in rural and remote areas, where local people's livelihood mostly depend on agriculture. Recently, the community-based programs and models of international organizations to help people improve their capacity to respond to natural disasters and climate change have been implemented in many provinces and cities of Vietnam. These models have supported Vietnam in reducing the human and economic losses before the fluctuations of weather and natural disasters.
Hello and welcome to Sharing Vietnam on VTC10 Việt Nam. As we both know that Vietnam is one of the countries in the world which is most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change in recent years. And launching the climate change resilient models has become an urgent need for this country. In our program today, we have a talk to Mr. Todd Johnson, the Forestry and Agricultural Advisor from USAID, and he will share more about the topic of the effectiveness of the climate change resilient models in Vietnam. Thank you, Mr. Todd Johnson, for joining our program today. Well, first of all, what do you think about the general situation of the activities of coping with the climate change in Vietnam in recent years?
I think Vietnam is probably within ASEAN one of the leaders in terms of having good strategies and policies and legislation, and really at the, for example, the green growth strategy. These are very good plans being put in place. The climate change strategy and action plan, in 2014, the chapter under the Environmental Protection Act. A lot of very good policies being done at central level that are now being filtered down to provincial and district levels. And I think the general atmosphere for Vietnam coping with climate change as well as contributing to the mitigation is very good.
Currently, agriculture is still the main sectors of the Vietnam's economy. And apart from that, we still have other sectors like tourism or energies, which are almost affected to the impacts of the climate change. So what do you think about the impacts of climate change to these kind of sectors in Vietnam?
Well, agriculture is definitely one of the ones that one of the sectors of the Vietnamese economy that is most severely impacted. Yes. As we've seen just this year with the El Nino related droughts in southern Vietnam and in the Mekong Delta, the rice producing areas that account for so much of the exports of rice from Vietnam to other countries in the region that rely on that production because farmers were not able to plant on time and the lack of water. And so, that's going to then perhaps ripple even into the global economy and affect prices. And that can have a huge impact on not just the agricultural production, but also on things like fisheries production, the forest industry. I mean, anything that relies on soil, rain, the climatic factors.
USAID is a state agency which have cooperated with Vietnam to run various projects regarding to the climate change issues. So can you share some of the outstanding results of these projects in Vietnam?
Almost 5 years now that the United States and Vietnam have been working closely together on addressing climate change. Vietnam is one of the countries that others look to in terms of you're addressing that whole spectrum. It's not just about the storms and the disasters, but also those slower moving impacts that also need to be addressed because they may in fact affect more people. I think that right here in the Red River Delta in Nam Dinh and other nearby areas, there's been some very good work on the near-term aspects, such as disaster preparedness, understanding what might be, if there's a stronger typhoon. We've been working with the Red Cross, for example, on training school children. What happens when there's a typhoon? What should they do?
This is a climate change resilient model of rice cultivation launched by the Agriculture and Fisheries Department of Nam Dinh Province and USAID in Giao Hải Commune. The model has been implemented since 2014 with the participation of more than 80 households. After 2 years of implementation, in addition to improving productivity and profits, the model has reduced greenhouse gases emissions during the process of cultivation.
Nó vừa là giảm cái phát thải này, tránh được cái ô nhiễm môi trường này và cái mong muốn của nông dân là chi phí ít, lợi nhuận cao.
Khi mà chúng tôi triển khai cái dự án này tại xã Giao Hải ấy, thì được bà con đón nhận rất là nhiệt tình. Cụ thể là khi mà chúng tôi đưa cái phân hữu cơ vi sinh vào ấy, thì cái lượng đạm ở đây đã giảm đi khoảng 4 đến 5 kg trên một sào. Và với riêng cái xã Giao Hải này thì cái lượng đạm ấy người ta dùng rất là nhiều, thậm chí đến 18-20 cân đạm trên một sào cơ. Mà cái đạm thì mọi người đều biết rằng là khi mà bón nó quá thừa thì nó sẽ tăng cái phát thải khí nhà kính. Và như vậy là cái dự án này là đã hỗ trợ cái phân hữu cơ vi sinh để cho mọi người có thể làm và mọi người giảm cái lượng đạm đi.
One of the problems that many farmers in Giao Hải Commune in particular and in other regions in general often encounter is handling post-harvest straw. The traditional way of burying straw pollutes not only the air but also increases greenhouse gas emissions. This climate change resilient model has introduced a solution for local people to apply.
Cái hậu của nó sau khi nó gặt thì là một vấn đề nan giải. Vì người nông dân nó đi vào cái tiềm thức của người ta rồi. Bây giờ không đốt rơm rạ thì không ai dùng thổi rơm rạ nữa, thì chỉ có đốt.
Trong cái dự án này có hỗ trợ một cái chế phẩm là ATITB. Sau khi mà gặt xong thì bà con sẽ được chúng tôi là hướng dẫn là trộn cái gói đấy và rắc vào ruộng khi đã có nước. Và sau đấy là người ta cày đất thì khi cày đần là đất thì cái vi sinh nó sẽ lẫn vào trong đất thì nó sẽ phân hủy cái gốc rạ này rất là nhanh. Và sau đó thì chỉ khoảng 15-20 ngày sau là có thể làm đất để có thể cấy được vụ mùa một cách rất yên tâm.
By participating in this model, farmers' lives in Giao Hải Commune, Nam Dinh Province have improved significantly. They were active in cultivating to respond to climate change and improve economic efficiency for their families.
Mục tiêu lớn nhất là để người dân để nhận thức và áp dụng các biện pháp khoa học kỹ thuật để vào trong sản xuất. Thứ nhất là mang lại hiệu quả kinh tế cho người dân. Và điều quan trọng nhất là được bảo vệ môi trường sống của chúng ta. Bởi vì chính trên môi trường sống của chúng ta trong quá trình sản xuất sử dụng quá nhiều thuốc cỏ, quá nhiều thuốc bảo vệ thực vật, quá nhiều thuốc ốc, quá nhiều thuốc sâu thì quá nhiều các loại phân vô cơ thì chúng ta sẽ làm tăng cái lượng phát thải và làm ảnh hưởng tới trực tiếp môi trường và đời sống của chúng ta.
After the initial success in a small area, the climate change resilient rice planting models would require more time and effort from the authority and local people to apply widely at 300-hectare rice fields in Giao Hải Commune, Nam Định Province. More importantly, people have gradually realized the negative impact of climate change to actively cooperate with the local authorities in protecting the environment and coping to climate change.
Coming back to the talk today. So these are some of the examples of the climate change resilient models in Vietnam. So what do you think about these kind of models, like general evaluation?
Across the region, Vietnam is one of the very good examples. Seeing the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, in the green growth strategy that Vietnam has developed. Vietnam is very well known for the payment for forest environmental services. And we're honored to have been able to work with the government of Vietnam in developing the decree for that and now the implementation of that. More the short-term things down in Long An province, I was able to see where the Red Cross were working with school children and helping them understand, also providing them some materials in a way that they could then go back and help their parents to understand. And then there's the resilience, which is looking more at the systems of how communities and societies reacts to some of these challenges. And so it's sort of a spectrum of response from first you survive, then you cope, then you adapt, and then you become more resilient.
So what kind of legal policies regarding to the climate change issues would you recommend for the Vietnamese government?
At national level, central level, there's a very good set of strategies and policies in place. And we're happy to be working with the government in moving that down to provincial and district levels. Some of the provinces are doing better than others. Da Nang City, for example, is developing green building standards so that any new construction uses a more energy conservation way of doing that construction. And what that means is if there are fewer coal-fired power plants that need to be built, then we've now reduced emissions, and so then the adaptation to climate change doesn't need to be as impactful.
Okay, so how would you expect the need for the climate change resilient models in the next several years in Vietnam?
The current activities that are being undertaken are contributing, and there's very good progress being made. We are in conversations with the government at several levels and several of the ministries about what they see as their next priorities. I think that for example, the intended nationally determined contribution that Vietnam put forward at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties in Paris, what are called INDCs that Vietnam put forward, lays out a very good big picture of what those next priorities may be.
So last but not least, can you share some of the plans of USAID in supporting Vietnam to cope with the climate change in the next several years?
There's a firm commitment from the United States to continue working with Vietnam in addressing a range of development challenges, and climate change is definitely one of the ones that both countries see as a high priority. As you know, when President Obama was visiting here recently, he announced that the two countries have agreed to a partnership on climate change, and that touches on several different parts of the overall addressing of climate change. Climate resilient models for things such as agriculture, for urban planning, those are all incorporated in that.
Thank you so much for sharing. And that is the end of our program Sharing Vietnam for today. We do hope that we have brought you some information regarding to the effectiveness of the climate change resilient models in some provinces of Vietnam. For comments and feedbacks, please send it to sharingvietnam@netvtv.net. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.